Hello, friends. Today on our agenda is a mystery that has terrified scientists and archaeologists for a very long time. This discovery makes one truly tremble with fear and amazement, completely destroying everything we knew about the great civilizations of the past. The mystery of Egypt has always stirred the imagination, but what we are going to talk about today completely changes our view of ancient Egypt. What if I told you that one of the scariest and most inexplicable secrets of this great civilization is finally beginning to reveal its secrets? And attention, this revelation not only changes history, it completely overturns our understanding of the technological capabilities of ancient peoples. The enigmas of Egypt continue to amaze us, leaving scientists perplexed, and some discoveries still cannot be explained within the framework of traditional archaeology. Today, we will uncover one of these astonishing discoveries, which could change our entire perception of antiquity. Ready? Then let's go. The end of the 19th century became a truly golden age for Egyptian archaeology. European scholars, adventurers, collectors, and simple seekers of adventure literally poured into Egypt, turning the study of antiquities into a real fever. Egyptology became fashionable and extremely profitable, and the greatness and mysteries of ancient Egypt attracted the attention of the entire civilized world. In this atmosphere of universal fascination with antiquities, the figure of Auguste Mariette especially stood out. Unlike many of his colleagues, he was not driven by greed or the desire to enrich private collections of European aristocrats. Mariette was a true scientist, with a deep, almost religious attachment to the heritage of Egypt. His goal was not simply to extract treasures from the sands of the desert, but to preserve and study this priceless cultural legacy for future generations. In 1850, the young Mariette arrived in Egypt practically without means, but with a burning heart and an irresistible desire to make discoveries. He had little money, but he had boundless determination and, most importantly, scientific intuition, which soon led him to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 19th century. Mariette's attention was drawn to an ancient text by the Greek geographer Strabo, who lived in the 1st century AD. In his geographical notes, Strabo mentioned a mysterious place in Sakara where strong desert winds constantly covered with sand an ancient avenue of stone sphinxes. According to the geographer, the sand accumulated so much and so regularly that these majestic statues were visible only from the waist up and sometimes completely disappeared under the dunes. This description literally haunted Mariette. He spent hours pondering the words of the ancient author, trying to imagine where exactly in Sakara this mysterious avenue might be located. Strabo's description became a true obsession for the French archaeologist, and he firmly decided, no matter what, to find this place.
Setting out for Sakara with a small team of workers, Mariette began systematic searches. He carefully studied the terrain, trying to find signs of structures buried under the sand. And soon, his perseverance was rewarded. He really discovered the partially buried head of an ancient sphinx. This discovery caused Mariette genuine euphoria. He immediately organized the clearing of sand and soon discovered an entire avenue of majestic sphinxes, exactly as Strabo had described more than 18 centuries earlier. Each unearthed sphinx confirmed the correctness of his intuition and the accuracy of the ancient sources. But the real surprises lay ahead. Continuing excavations along the avenue of sphinxes, he discovered a stone staircase leading down into the depths of the earth. Descending this staircase, the archaeologist found himself at the entrance to a vast underground necropolis, which later received the name Serapeum.
It was in this underground, in the depths of dark corridors lit only by the trembling light of torches, that Mariette encountered a discovery that shook him to the core and forced him to reconsider many ideas about the abilities of the ancient Egyptians. The Serapeum of Sakara turned into one of the most mysterious and enigmatic archaeological sites ever discovered by mankind. When Mariette and his small team of archaeologists began a systematic study of this underground complex, they could not have imagined, even in their wildest dreams, what awaited them in the gloomy corridors of the ancient necropolis. The underground resembled a complex system of corridors and chambers carved into solid rock. The ceilings were supported by massive stone blocks, and the walls in places were covered with ancient inscriptions and images. The air inside was heavy and stale, filled with the smell of centuries, and each step of the archaeologists echoed loudly in the dark galleries. But the most astonishing thing was revealed in the main corridors of the necropolis. There, in the semi-darkness, barely illuminated by flickering torchlight, stood objects that shocked the researchers. 24 gigantic granite boxes, each of which represented a monolithic structure of incredible size and astonishing precision of workmanship. The dimensions of these boxes were simply overwhelming. Each measured about 4 meters in length, more than 2 meters in width, and over 3 meters in height. These were true giants of black granite, weighing up to 100 tons. Each box as heavy as a modern tank. Standing in the relatively narrow corridors of the underground, these monoliths created a feeling of complete unreality, as if Mariette's team had entered some fantastic world where completely different laws of physics and engineering prevailed. The material from which the boxes were made also caused astonishment. It was the hardest pink and black granite, one of the strongest natural stones, the processing of which requires special tools and technologies. In antiquity, such granite was quarried in Aswan, hundreds of kilometers south of Sakara. The very idea of transporting such gigantic blocks such distances with the means available at that time seemed completely fantastic.
Instead, he was met by absolute, oppressive emptiness. The box was completely empty. No mummies, no treasures, no burial objects. Nothing of what should have been in any Egyptian tomb, whether the grave of a pharaoh or a simple Egyptian. This emptiness was so unexpected and unnatural from the point of view of Egyptian traditions that Mariette for some time simply stood in a daze, trying to comprehend what he saw. One by one, the researchers opened the other boxes, and each time the result was the same: absolute emptiness. Only in one of the boxes were found pitiful remains, a few fragments of bull bones mixed with bitumen, but this only deepened the mystery rather than solved it. These modest remains in no way corresponded to the scale and grandeur of the boxes themselves. The entire context of the find pointed to a connection of the Serapeum with the cult of the bull deity. However, upon closer examination, this seemingly logical theory began to show serious cracks, and the number of contradictions grew with each new study. The first and most obvious contradiction concerned the incredible size of the boxes. Even the largest sacred bull could not justify the creation of such gigantic sarcophagi. The mummy of Apis, even with all its wrappings and protective layers, occupied only a small part of the box's interior space. To understand the scale of this disproportion, it is enough to imagine that modern people would bury domestic cats in sarcophagi the size of a shipping container. Such a discrepancy does not just look illogical, it seems completely absurd, especially considering the enormous effort required to create, transport, and install these monoliths. The economic aspect also raises serious doubts. Creating each such box required colossal resources, from quarrying and transporting granite to its processing and installation in the underground. In the conditions of the ancient world, where any resources were limited,
Such expenses on clearly oversized sarcophagi seem completely irrational. The complete emptiness of the boxes looks so unnatural from the point of view of Egyptian traditions that some researchers suggested perhaps the boxes had been looted in antiquity. However, against this hypothesis testifies the fact that many boxes were found sealed with lids that had not been moved for millennia. If robbers had opened the boxes, they would have left traces of break-ins which archaeologists did not find.
The third serious problem of the official version is connected with the quality of the inscriptions on the boxes. The hieroglyphic texts were made extremely carelessly, with numerous errors, uneven lines, and violations of the traditional canons of Egyptian writing. Such poor quality of engraving sharply contrasts with the flawless workmanship of the boxes themselves, and in no way corresponds to the high level of mastery characteristic of Egyptian monuments of such religious significance. It creates the impression that the inscriptions were applied much later than the creation of the boxes, perhaps by people who did not fully understand their original purpose but tried to adapt these mysterious objects for their own religious needs. These granite giants leave us with many questions that archaeology still cannot answer. How did the ancient Egyptians manage to create such precise and massive constructions? What technologies did they use to process and transport such heavy blocks? Why were these boxes, contrary to all traditions, empty? Perhaps we have underestimated the capabilities of ancient civilizations. And perhaps these boxes are not just burial attributes, but part of a deeper, hidden history that we still have to uncover. What do you think this astonishing discovery could actually have concealed? Was it the creation of a high-tech civilization lost in time? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow new investigations and unravel the ancient mysteries together with us. See you in the next video.